It began with a flicker. At first, the Artemis Deep Space Array believed it was just noise, another stray burst of radiation bouncing off distant celestial bodies. Earth's telescopes constantly picked up background static, ancient whispers of dead stars, and long-forgotten collisions. But this was different. The signal appeared at 2:14 UTC, detected in the Kuiper band from a point just beyond the orbit of Neptune, right near the edge of the solar system. It was faint but sharply structured. Repeating pulses emerged in a series of mathematically perfect primes, 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, 13. Then a pause. Then it repeated. But each repetition had tiny variations, like it was adjusting. Listening. Dr. Amelia Kwan, head of astrophysics at the Artemis Array, was the first to spot the anomaly. Her instincts screamed this wasn't random. She called in her team, ran spectrograms, and tested against known phenomena: pulsars, quasars, background radiation. Nothing matched. It was artificial. The discovery was reported to the International Space Research Coalition within hours. Within a day, every major observatory on Earth and Luna was pointed at the signal source. And within 3 days, they had consensus. The pulse contained structure far beyond natural order. Buried in the frequency patterns was a recursive mathematical lattice, something like a language protocol, but nothing human. The signal wasn't a message in the conventional sense. It was a door, but a door meant for someone else. AI-assisted linguistics teams from MIT, Tsinghua, and the European Institute for Alien Contact, EIAC, analyzed the signal's embedded structure. They concluded the data wasn't designed for carbon-based life. The waveform resonance and sequence formatting were optimized for silicon-based processing, non-organic, likely synthetic intelligence. The format assumed logic trees far beyond human standards of computation. In simple terms, this signal wasn't meant for humanity. It was designed for someone or something ancient, something gone. Perhaps the builders of the signal had vanished long ago, and this was a remnant, an ancient beacon still pulsing in the void, waiting for a response that never came. Most scientists wanted to leave it alone. It's like picking up a letter addressed to someone else, one senior cosmologist warned. What if it's not a greeting? What if it's a warning? Or a trap? Others were fascinated by the challenge. Despite being the wrong species, the wrong biology, the wrong intelligence type entirely, humanity was drawn to it. The idea that the universe had been trying to talk to someone else, and humans had stumbled upon the call, ignited a fire in Earth's thinkers, dreamers, and risk-takers. Dr. Kwan was among the most vocal. It's true the signal wasn't meant for us, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't respond. History doesn't favor the silent. It was Earth's greatest temptation, the forbidden question. What happens if we answer something not meant for us? The global community divided. Public forums exploded with speculation. Some believed this could launch Earth into a new galactic age. Others feared it would mark humanity on some ancient map, painting Earth as a reckless child, reaching into places it didn't belong. But the die was already cast. With quiet backing from a shadow alliance of nations, a project was greenlit, Ecospira, moon-based platform designed to return the call. The team's goal was not only to respond, but to reshape the signal format just enough to allow human data DNA patterns, star maps, language matrices to be translated back into the alien lattice. It took months of decoding and guesswork, countless simulations. But eventually, the team produced a return pulse, a message in the same cosmic language, translated through brute force, AI innovation, and human stubbornness. Despite every warning, despite every indication it was not humanity's place to respond, Earth sent the message. And for the first few weeks after transmission, the stars were silent. No reply. The team at EchoSpire waited, day after day, rechecking instruments, praying they hadn't miscalculated. But then on the 21st day after Earth's message left the moon, the signal came back. This time, it was louder, stronger, and very different. The return message didn't repeat the primes. It didn't introduce itself. It didn't even acknowledge the reply. It transmitted coordinates. Deep space. Beyond human reach. Far beyond. Not an answer, not a greeting, but an invitation or a summons, and Earth had a choice to make. The coordinates changed everything. The signal's reply came not with greetings or even warnings, but with precision, a location so deep into the Perseus arm of the galaxy that no human craft had even approached it. A place marked by silence on every cosmic map, no stars of note, no planets. Just interstellar void. It was the kind of place astrophysicists called a dead zone, where gravity was oddly thin and M activity almost unnaturally low. Yet somehow, that was where the signal pointed. The debate over whether to act was fierce. EchoSpire Coalition, now bolstered by international funding and military interest, called for exploration. They argued that this was the first true step toward contact with a civilization older than humanity's first written word. If the senders were extinct, then the site could hold unimaginable knowledge. If they weren't extinct, well, humanity had already knocked on the door. Turning back would look cowardly or worse, dishonorable. The United Terran Defense Council, however, voiced strong opposition. Their analysts viewed the signal as a probe test to see who or what was listening. And humans had answered it, with all the subtlety of a flare gun. Now someone or something had pointed them into the void. We don't walk into dark rooms just because someone else opens the door, one admiral warned, but Earth's leaders weren't united, and curiosity proved louder than fear. The mission was greenlit. The vessel selected for the journey was no ordinary ship. It was the ISS Vindicator, a top-secret deep space reconnaissance cruiser originally designed for interstellar war deterrence. Built in orbit and shielded from public knowledge, the Vindicator housed experimental propulsion, near-AI navigation, and an advanced shielding system that could theoretically withstand stellar-level radiation. To many, it was overkill. To the crew, it was barely enough. The hand-picked team of 200 included the best of human science, diplomacy, and security. Among them was Dr. Amelia Kwan, the original discoverer of the signal, now elevated to mission. Led by international acclaim. She viewed the mission as both scientific honor and moral duty. If someone called out into the dark and Earth answered, then Earth had to follow through. Before launch, a revised message was sent from the EchoSpire. Array this time announcing humanity's intent to visit the coordinates. The message included a snapshot of the ship's specifications, crew manifest, and Earth's diplomatic principles, encoded in the alien lattice the signal had used. It was meant to signal peace. There was no reply, not a pulse. Not a whisper. It didn't matter. 17 days later, the Vindicator launched from high Earth orbit. Its destination, a point 47,000 light-years away. Using the ship's advanced Alcubierre-inspired warp system, the crew experienced travel like nothing before. Space bent around them. Days aboard became months on Earth, and still. Silence greeted them. Then, finally, at the outer edge of the destination system, they saw it. The black gate. It was not a gate in the traditional sense, but a structure monolithic, motionless, and impossibly large. Suspended in the void, shaped like a stretched ring of smooth obsidian, it stood like a monument to an extinct god. Around it, a scattered graveyard of shattered asteroids drifted, many sheared clean as if cut by immense energy. There were no signs of a planet, no heat signatures, no visible entry points. but the Vindicator's sensors lit up the moment they approached. The original signal returned louder now, more complex, containing modulated harmonics that hadn't existed before. It was as if the presence of a human ship had triggered something. The crew stared at the structure in awe and unease. It wasn't dormant. It was waiting. Then the pulses stopped and the gate changed. The outer edge of the ring flared with a ripple of light, and a hole opened in its center. Not black, not even space, but something else, like a distortion in reality itself. The readings made no sense. Distances flickered. Time warped in microbursts. Even light behaved incorrectly near the core. Every warning bell rang, but no threats emerged, no defenses activated, no message for bad entry. Instead, the same coordinates reappeared in the transmission, but slightly altered. Now the signal pointed into the heart of the gate. The meaning was clear. It was no longer just an invitation. It was a summons. Some aboard the Vindicator hesitated. Dr. Kwan didn't. Her voice echoed across the command deck with calm certainty. We came to answer. We don't stop at the doorstep. The ship moved forward. Into the gate. As the ISS Vindicator passed through the black gate, every sensor aboard went blind. One moment, stars glittered in the dark void. The next, nothing. Not blackness, just absence. It was like falling into a place that had forgotten how light, gravity, and time were supposed to behave. The ship's chronometers began to skip milliseconds, then minutes, then hours. Distance collapsed, expanded, inverted. Crew members reported feeling pressure in their bones, a weightless heaviness in their thoughts, as if their minds were being stretched and reoriented by unseen forces. But through the chaos, the ship endured. Its experimental shielding held. Its warp core stabilized. And slowly, the distortion settled. What lay on the other side wasn't space as humans knew it. It was a dimensional plane folded, echoing with fractured geometry and luminous debris. It was like drifting through the shattered memories of a galaxy. The crew stared in silence as their screens displayed the impossible. Floating around them were massive constructs, some the size of moons, others like cities suspended in airless silence. They glowed with faded light and strange inscriptions, glyphs no human had seen before. Some structures were intact, while others floated as rubble. Slowly orbiting nothing. At the heart of this alien graveyard stood a massive monolith spiraling upward, woven from interlacing metal and crystal. It didn't rotate, didn't move, but somehow conveyed motion, a living stillness. The ship's AI flagged it instantly. Source of the secondary signal. Dr. Amelia Kwan stood in the observation dome, transfixed. This isn't just a gate, she whispered. It's a library. The Vindicator maneuvered closer, its signal arrays humming with interference. As the crew began scanning the structure, the ship's systems were overwhelmed with data. Not malicious, just dense. Endless streams of structured information, cascading into Earth languages via the translation algorithms they'd refined back home. What the crew discovered next would change human understanding forever. The constructs were not weapons, not cities. They were memories. The monolith and its companions acted as storage, a record of an ancient race that called themselves the Architects. They were a post-biological civilization that had long since abandoned physical form. Their minds, their knowledge, and even fragments of their history had been stored in the gate system, left behind for others to find. But that wasn't the full truth. The signal Earth had discovered? It was part of a galactic beacon web, once designed to reach out to other high-level species, those capable of processing information across dimensions, of interacting with nonlinear time, of stepping through the gates not just physically, but cognitively. Only a few had ever answered. Some fell short. Others simply vanished. The architects had waited for equals. Instead, they found humanity. And yet, something changed. The data coming from the monolith began adjusting in real time, shifting its frequency patterns to accommodate human logic, human perception. It was evolving, rewriting itself as if acknowledging the human presence, not with scorn, not with dismissal, but recognition. The signal was never meant for humans, but the architect's systems had judged humanity's leap primitive, reckless, but genuine. A child opening a door meant for gods. Aboard the Vindicator, crew members began experiencing shared hallucinations, visions of impossible cities, voices without sound, memories that were not their own. The data wasn't just being transmitted, it was being understood on a biological level. Some believed the gate was testing them. Others thought it was teaching. And then it stopped. A single message, pulsing in the original signal's rhythm, echoed across the bridge. You are not what we expected then, but you came. And finally, your place is now chosen. Before anyone could respond, the gate flared to life. The Vindicator was surrounded by waves of translucent energy. Coordinates streamed across their main screen, millions of them. Points across the galaxy. Gate systems, dormant, waiting. The architects had left behind a web, a network built to connect only the worthy. Until now. It had fallen silent. But now the web had a new custodian. Humanity had crossed a threshold not meant for it. And found? No rejection, no conquest, no punishment. Instead, they were invited further. The void flickered, reality bent once more, and the Vindicator was hurled back through the gate. But they weren't returning empty-handed. They were bringing back the key to a lost civilization, and with it, the role of stewards in a forgotten galactic legacy. The ISS Vindicator emerged from the Black Gate not as it had entered. Externally, the ship bore no scars, but internally, something fundamental had shifted. Its systems, its data cores, even its crew had been altered by what they had seen and absorbed. They had entered expecting ruins or silence, maybe danger, but what they found instead was a legacy. A cosmic torch left behind by a race that no longer walked the stars. The architects. That was the term their signal used when describing themselves, translated roughly, not in arrogance, but in purpose. They hadn't just lived in the galaxy. They'd shaped it. They had risen from a world like Earth millions of years ago, transcended biology, mastered space, time, and consciousness, and eventually shed their need for physical existence entirely. They had created the Gateweb, a system of interdimensional constructs designed not just for travel, but for connection, discovery, and inheritance. The signal was part of this web, a beacon. But over time, the gates had grown quiet. The last message. Encoded in the monolith was a lament no others had answered. The architects had searched for equals, for others who had also climbed the ladder of reality. But as millennia passed, they realized their signal reached only extinction, silence, or primitive echo species that had not yet crossed the threshold, or had destroyed themselves before they could. So the architects left or ascended, or died, it was unclear. Their message ended with the final line: if none answer, let silence be our monument. If one answers, let them choose their place. Humanity answered. And in doing so, they reactivated systems thought dormant. The monolith responded to Earth's curiosity not as an error in logic, but as an act of courage. Primitive though humans were, their persistence had bridged an impossible gap. The architect systems had recognized this quality not in intellect, but in spirit. When the Vindicator returned, Earth was waiting. 17 months had passed for those on the planet. They had nearly given up hope, believing the mission lost in the void. But when the ship reappeared near lunar orbit accompanied by a shimmering envelope of unknown particles, everything changed. They didn't return alone. Databanks had grown tenfold. Inside the Vindicator's archives were entire databases filled with knowledge, not just alien history, but science, energy manipulation, and dimensional physics beyond humanity's deepest theories. The languages of the architects, they're recorded. Philosophies, simulations of their rise, and a detailed map of the dormant gate web. Dozens maybe hundreds of gates across the galaxy, hidden, inactive, some buried inside planets, some adrift in interstellar space, all waiting for a signal. And now, Earth had the access key. Humanity had been offered a role custodian of the legacy, but with that came responsibility. Dr. Amelia Kwan addressed the United Earth Assembly in what became the most watched broadcast in human history. Her speech was simple. They searched for minds like theirs and found only ours. Not because we were equals, but because we dared to reach. We don't inherit their power. We inherit their trust. And with that trust comes a choice: to become the bridge for others or to close the gate behind us. Debate raged across Earth for weeks. Some feared the implications sharing such power, revealing Earth's position, awakening something dangerous. Others argued this was the moment humanity had waited for, proof they were not alone, and perhaps a mission far greater than survival. In the end, consensus formed, not through politics, but through wonder. A new directive was drafted: Project Continuum. Its mission? Re-establish the gate web, reach other species. Share knowledge with caution but openness. Guide, not dominate. Teach, not rule. Earth wouldn't become the new empire. It would become the first speaker. In the years that followed, Earth's moon became more than a symbol of exploration. It became the center of a new signal, a reborn beacon transmitting across the stars. But now, the signal was not an architect tongue alone. It carried human music, stories, laughter, mathematics, sorrow, triumph, all laced in a lattice built from the hybrid. Language learned in the monolith. It was no longer a call meant for ancient minds. Now it was for anyone who would listen. Earth had changed. In the months following the Vindicator's return, the world no longer felt like a blue marble adrift in the void. It had become something more: a node in a forgotten network, a keystone in a galactic system long dormant. The architects had vanished, but their legacy hadn't. And now, it was humanity's responsibility to carry the torch forward. The Project Continuum. Headquarters was constructed on the far side of the moon, adjacent to the now permanent base. Surrounding the Ecospire array, powered by fusion reactors and shielded with architect-inspired technology, the new array was far more than a transmitter. It was a translator, a listener, and a beacon. But this time, the signal it sent wasn't just pulses of prime numbers or mathematical lattices. It was distinctly human. The new message carried Earth's languages, cultural artifacts, and art. The rhythms of human music, the DNA map of the species, simulations of neural thought patterns, and even simple Earth sounds: rainfall, ocean waves, a baby's laugh, wrapped in a hybrid protocol that fused human logic with architect formatting. The signal reached out not just to the intelligent, but to the curious, and it wasn't long before the universe noticed. The first response came in whispers, tiny deviations in the cosmic background picked up by Continuum's deeper field sensors. Then pulses, steady and low, from systems thought empty. Nothing direct, nothing that could be deciphered. But the pattern was familiar. Other beacons were waking, other gates, long inert, now shimmered with faint activity. Some opened in empty voids. Others responded in bursts of exotic particles unknown to human science. One gate locked in the gravity well of a brown dwarf, released a flare of coherent light shaped like a spiral helix. Another emitted bursts of magnetic inversion strong enough to affect instruments light years away. Dr. Amelia Kwan, now the face of Earth's new cosmic diplomacy, stood at the heart of it all. She watched the live data feed streaming into Continuum HQ and realized it had begun. Humanity hadn't just found the gates, they had reactivated the search, but not all signals were friendly. One gate opened to reveal nothing but static and heat, a supernova's ghost echoing through twisted space. Another pulsed only once, then went dark, as if whatever lay on the other side had heard the call and chosen silence. And then, on Earth's 8th month of broadcasting, came the first true reply, not from a gate, not from a machine, but from a ship. It arrived near Saturn. No known warp trail. No gravitational ripples. One moment space was empty. The next, it wasn't. The vessel was vast and utterly alien-smooth, crescent-shaped, adorned with shimmering surfaces that absorbed and scattered light in ways that defied optics. It didn't respond to hails. It didn't transmit a message. It simply drifted, then echoed Earth's own signal back to them, modulated in a different format, altered, expanded, as if to say, "We received it. We understand. Now listen to ours." Carried knowledge, and like the architects, more biological, more emotional, pulsing with energy and harmonic emotion. The translation AI struggled to parse it, but it managed one thing. A single clear sentence burned into every display screen aboard the Echospire network. You speak the dead's tongue, but your voice is your own. Humanity had done the unthinkable. They had answered a message never meant for them, and in doing so, they had become a voice among civilizations. Earth was no longer just a planet. It was now a signal origin, a place whose stories, data, and values would ripple across the stars for lifetimes to come. In classrooms across Earth, children learned of the Black Gate and the architects as part of their basic education. In orbit, Earth's second exploration vessel, the ISS Aurora, was being outfitted for a journey to another gate system, this time with a diplomatic core and open intent to make first contact. But Dr. Kwan knew this was only the beginning. The architects wanted equals, she said during her final address before transferring command to the next generation. They didn't find them, but they left the door open anyway for those willing to try. And humans had tried. Now others would try too. Somewhere beyond the veil of starlight, new voices stirred. Not all would be kind. Not all would be safe. But Earth was ready. The gate that had once tested them was now a part of them. And across the galaxy, for the first time in thousands of years, the signal was not silent. It spoke. It pulsed. It carried one undeniable truth. We were never meant to hear it, but we did. We were never meant to answer, but we did. Now you must listen.